Right, shall we start off by doing
Yes.
a start? So I'll go. Right, hello everybody. My name's Nick Stokes, and I'm from the dstl branch of Prospect Union. We're here to talk about the industrial action that's taking place within Prospect at the moment. Thank you all for attending. I do need to remind you not to be using work equipment to participate in this meeting. This meeting is recorded. You'll get a link through your email, and you'll be able to send it on to fellow members. If we have any non-members looking at this, again, I remind you that you are not legally protected in the same way members are, and you cannot take any industrial action. You can join Prospect at www.prospect.org.uk. And we want to make these meetings as accessible and as useful as possible. So we're using MS Teams for the meeting, and I will put captions and a transcription out for everybody to be able to see the written word. Now, I'm joined here today by Nick Males, who's kindly joined me from HQ to talk about the industrial ballot that's going on. Hello, Nick.
Hi, Nick. Sorry, we're not being unimaginative in sharing the same name, but for those of you who don't know me, yeah, I'm Nick Males, and I'm the full-time officer, negotiations officer, who helps look after the dstl branch. Let's face it, they do most of the work, but I advise them and help them get to where they need to be. So yeah, thanks, Nick.
No, thanks very much for joining us. Well, I put out some questions to members about the ballot because I think at DSGL there's a little bit of misunderstanding and a little bit of confusion as to what the ballot's all about. If it's all right with you, I'm going to run through a few questions that members have got, and then we can come back to what the specifics are going to be for DSGL on this ballot.
Yeah, of course, no problem at all.
No worries. Well, the first question I've got, and I suppose it's a fairly fundamental one. What's this all about? Why are we doing it?
Well, hopefully, members will have seen, the quite steady stream of communications that's been coming out from HQ, since before Christmas. This all kicked off before Christmas when we were asking members across the public sector to take part in an indicative ballot, in that we were trying to gauge what the feedback was from our members around a few issues that we knew, causing lots and lots of issues. So primarily, and that was down to 3 issues. So ultimately pay, civil service pay, that's governed by the pay remit guidance, and I'll talk a bit about that in a bit. But also around, at that time, around headcount reduction. The narrative that was the government were banding around was an arbitrary 91,000 headcount reduction, which has moved on from then, in that the language is more nuanced now, in they're talking about savings, efficiency savings, which doesn't necessarily mean headcount reduction, but we all know probably does mean headcount reduction. So that's the second issue. And the third issue is about the proposed changes to the civil service compensation scheme, namely a reduction in redundancy compensation. And we can talk a bit about that. So we asked all of our branches across the public sector, not just these dstl, because this is a wider campaign, although we address it at an employer level, and we have to do that for legal reasons. So we asked indicatively, and hopefully members took part in that ballot. Now that indicative,
you got good strong response from that ballot.
Yeah, on average, across all of those public sector branches, we had a 60% turnout, which is absolutely, incredible. In some branches, it was significantly more than that, the average of 60% turnout. And that's really important, that people actually exercise their right to vote, even in an indicative ballot. And it's even more important when we get to a statutory ballot. But also, more importantly, in excess of 90% of people voting for strike action and action short of a strike. And we can explain a bit more about those later. So that gave us a really clear mandate across the public sector that actually our members were fed up. They'd had enough after 12 years of austerity, pay restraint, everything like that. It's a clear message, isn't it, from our members to us, the union, that our members want to potentially take action here. So we then moved into planning for moving to a statutory ballot in those areas where we, that we know are going to be able to hit that statutory threshold. So moving to a statutory ballot, there are legal requirements that we have to fulfil to be able to do that. The government make it extremely difficult for trade unions and indeed you as the members to exercise that vote. So, for example, the biggest difference between an indicative ballot and a statutory ballot is it goes postal, because it's much more difficult to,
Stuff gets lost in the post, and
stuff
it
gets
takes
lost in the post,
ages, and yeah,
everything like that. So we're moving to statutory ballot across the public sector. Now, people will probably ask the question, well, if it's being done across the public sector, why do we need to get involved in DSTL? The way that it works is effectively we have had to register a dispute with your employer. So we have a disaggregated ballot for the statutory purposes. So the dispute is with DSTL. So we have already written to DSTL, to the chief exec, and said, look, this is the dispute, around pay, around civil service compensation scheme reductions, and around savings. Unless we hear from you in 7 days about what you propose to do about that, then we're going to move potentially to a statutory ballot. So we got acknowledgement and we got a response which basically said, well, we can't do very much about it. We're told what we can do by Cabinet and Treasury, as in the pay remit guidance, and we take our guidance from them. So clearly we have now informed DSTL that we're moving to a statutory ballot. So that's what this ballot is going to be all about.
And the ballot opens on the 27th of January and runs to the 24th of February. Probably worth just talking a little bit about that ballot, because as Nick says, the government have deliberately made it difficult to run a ballot such as this. So it is coming by post, which of course is always a pain. But there's a critical element to this, because it's really, really critical that everybody returns their vote. Okay, because I know that previously when we've run ballots, people thought that not returning a vote was a no vote. Actually, it's much worse than that, because it can nullify the entire ballot. We have to achieve a 50%, is it?
So 50% of those who are eligible to vote need to have passed their vote for it to hit the threshold. After that, a simple majority is needed. So it doesn't matter whether people vote, and for quite valid reasons, people would, people are.
Yeah, take a choice. No. You can vote no, but just vote. That's the key thing: is return your vote, return the piece of paper, so that we can make this.
But this vote is, I want to reassure members here, this vote is completely anonymous. So even we don't know at Prospect how people have voted, because the legal requirements are that we have to conduct this vote through an independent scrutineer. So there's a company called Civica who, run lots of votes nationally for lots of different trade unions, and it's run through them. So effectively, we give them the membership information that we have and say, these people are eligible to vote. They sort all of that out, and they issue the postal votes to you, which have got unique numbers on them, which means they can identify, that vote has been cast. But even Civica can't tell who has voted what. It's literally, they put the stuff out, you post it back, and the number of votes and what those votes are registered. There is no voting ascribed to any particular members. We don't tell the employer. We're not able to tell the employer. So nobody knows how nobody has voted. A proper secret vote.
Yeah, good. That's the way it is. Now, obviously, the wording of the vote is also quite scary, isn't it? When you open up the piece of paper, it's deliberately scary and talks about breach of contracts and all sorts of stuff. So I think maybe we should clarify what that means.
Yeah, and it has to do that. It's a legal requirement that it has to say, that, what. Well, let's start off with. So, for a properly conducted statutory ballot that meets all of the legal requirements, and that's what you pay your membership fees for, is for us to get that stuff right on your behalf, and we do. We run these stuff, all of the time. So we look after that. Now, you are protected from taking industrial action, be that strike or action short of a strike, for a properly conducted ballot. So you are protected from dismissal. So your employer cannot unfairly dismiss you on the basis of you taking that action. and actually, I think it's really important context here, Nick, is that, you know, of all the ballots that we've run, it is very, very rare, extremely rare. In fact, I'm even struggling to think of any employer that has dismissed somebody in the public sector for taking part in a properly convened and constituted ballot. Now, some of you may also say, well, okay, dismissal is one thing, but can I be disciplined for taking part in industrial action or action short of a strike? Now, we've never known that to happen, and we would expect the same protections in terms of, you know, that properly conducted strike. So we've never known it across the public sector that anybody's ever been disciplined for taking part legitimately in that.
So you're safe. You're safe to vote, and you're anonymous in your vote. So really, no excuse not to vote other than apathy and laziness. So please do return your vote. You really are safe. Now, obviously, we're asking people to within there to vote for action up to and including strike, and not including strike. Now, it's probably worth us sort of clarifying what strike means, because for a lot of people, certainly I thought this strike was manning barricades, standing at the picket line, lighting braziers and all that kind of stuff. But actually, that's not the case, is it?
No, it's not. So strike is effectively a withdrawal of your labour, and effectively what you're doing is you're breaching, and don't be scared by that, you're legitimately breaching your contract of employment, because what you're doing by taking strike action is you are breaking that contract, you're withdrawing your labour contract. So the usual way that is represented, and you'll be seeing it across the news all of the time at the moment, is that people are actually not turning up for work, or not doing the work that they would normally do for a particular period of time. Now, what we're proposing as part of this industrial action campaign across the public sector is that we will start, if the thresholds are hit, we will start with 1 day of strike action, potentially, a date yet to be determined, but we have a window of 6 months to be able to take that action. Now, we're doing it in that way because we want that to be impactful. It's visible. It's 1 day of action.
It's a PR exercise, isn't it? It creates a moment for the photographs and all that kind of stuff, and a bit of solidarity, dare I say it, stood at the picket lines.
Yeah. Now, depending on the organisations that are represented, withdrawal of labour can have lots of different impacts. If you're a front-facing servicing organisation, it's going to have a lot of impacts. But we want to start it off with a day of strike action. Now, some of you will be saying, well, if I take strike action, I'll lose a day's pay, won't I? And yes, you're right. I mean, actually, if you look at it legally, the employer can, the employer chooses to take your pay for that day where you're not providing the labour. It's not a legal requirement that they have to do that. So it's their choice. It's their choice to do that. So that's what strike action is, or any action that isn't, that would be regarded as, a constituent part of your part of your duties.
And to bring that into focus for dstl, now dstl, we've got this wonderful world of instructions called Themis, and of course in there's lots of stuff that it says you must do within the management system, and of course those then form part of what your contract for employment says you're going to do. So it's quite important to reiterate that voting for strike allows us to withdraw elements of what we are mandated to do, not necessarily all of them. And I think that's quite important, because at dstl we know that members are very focused on output, because critical national assets, and there's people's lives who rely on people going to work, and we understand that. That's why we're aiming for the least impact for members and the most impact for our employers possible. So there is, the 1 day strike, and then after that, we need to make sure that we've got every option on the table for us to do what we need to do. So we are asking everyone to vote for strike.
That's right. And then, so action short of, so that's strike action. So action short of a strike is then, and the ballot paper, when it comes, will say, there's a couple of things on there. It will say about working your conditioned hours, not doing voluntary overtime, those sorts of things. So action short of a strike is, people withdrawing from goodwill, withdrawing from all that stuff that you do extra,
your first aid,
that you
your
might not
SIM,
get paid,
yeah.
not get paid for, that doesn't form a constituent part of your contract of employment. So that can be a really, really long, long list.
And it still has impact, but I think we need to be clear here that we're not. Whilst we are in dispute with DSGL, we recognise that the actual focus of all of this is actually on the pay remit guidance, because if we're honest, DSGL's given a bubble. It's given an envelope to work in. It's described and it's produced every year, which is the pay remit guidance. They can only work within those rules. Now, the problem is that's a really small bubble to work with. So DSGL is trying to do its best within there. But the reality is we have to get that bubble bigger for DSGL to be able to fix the problems that we've got locally, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And we're taking a view. This is, for Prospect to recommend to its members to take strike action is really unusual. We are not a union that enters into industrial action, into industrial action at a drop of a hat. This is absolutely a nuclear option for us, and I think it demonstrates, the passion that you all have and the important work that you do. That everybody has had enough, because if you don't vote, when are you gonna vote? Because if we don't take a stand now and we don't try and influence change, be that with dstl, be that with cabinet, be that with wider government, then what are they going to come for next? Are they going to come for our pensions? What are they going to come for? It's the time to take action now.
It is, and I'll reflect on what members have said to me, that they're about the critical nature of their role, and they can't take a day off. And I would say we're taking a day's strike here to protect your job, because otherwise fairly soon you might not have a job, because you might not be able to afford to, or the cuts have come and actually you're not able to do what you're so passionate about doing. So now is definitely the time to make your vote, stand up and be counted, and let's get this changed.
Now, so if we do hit that threshold, and we do take industrial action, there's an important point that we do need to cover. So the employer, and some of you may recognise this because you're probably getting letters, if you've got children, from your education providers that are saying, well, we're not sure whether the school's going to close at the moment, because actually we won't know until the morning of when the school's potentially going to close. Now, there's an important reason for that, is your employer can ask you whether you are going to be taking part in strike action. You are not obligated legally to tell them. You can if you so choose, but they cannot ask you whether you are striking until the day of the strike, when effectively you don't present for work.
And now, that's well timed, because we know that is going on right now. We know that members are being sent some very interestingly worded emails, which implies that if they don't tell their line manager in advance or on the day, they're going to be considered AWOL and open for disciplinary action. Now, we know that's not the case. That's scaremongering, or it's a couple of TLs that don't really understand the rules.
Yeah, and be clear, if any of you find yourself in that situation, then please escalate to the branch or to myself, and we will deal with that very robustly.
Nice one. And I think the last thing for me to mention with this is it's not just about what we're doing ourselves and withdrawing Labour, potentially striking. In parallel with that, we're also launching a campaign to put influence on our local MPs. For those that don't know, the local MP to Salisbury is actually in the Treasury. And I do believe that our current pay case is currently sat on his desk awaiting his signature, and he hasn't done it. So we are about to start applying pressure through social media to our local MPs who have supported us through all the good things that we do. Now we need their support through the bad times. So we'll be asking for their support and applying a little bit of pressure for them to join in and support us. Quick check through my questions. The only last question that members got that we haven't covered is am I forced to strike? Do I have to strike?
No, so
Now,
you're not forced to. No, absolutely not forced to strike. You can, once that we hit that threshold and we have the authorization to take action, that doesn't mandate anybody to take action. And then, we're not mandating people. We wouldn't mandate people to be on the picket line. We would organise all of that sort of stuff when we get to that point. But you're not mandated to take action. Clearly, we would like for solidarity. We would like people to, to take that action, because I think if we all stick together, we're more likely to influence that change that we want.
exactly. And as we said, there was only 1 day of planned strike action. It's being done deliberately for for the pictures and for the PR. It doesn't half make a good picture if everybody stood out the front. So we would ask that if we do get to that, do support us. Please join us on the picket line. I promise we'll make it fun, as well as being an important part of the strike action. Now, I think we've covered everything that's on there, mate, unless you've got anything else you need to add in.
Yeah, I just wanted to add some logistics around the ballot, because, as Nick has said, the ballot launches on the 27th and runs until the 24th of February. So, after the 27th, that's when the all of the postal ballots are picked up by the post office, and then will start being distributed. So you should start to see your postal votes probably Monday or Tuesday of that week after. So keep an eye out for those. I would say if
we'll send out loads
of
reminders.
If you don't see that ballot paper by the end of that subsequent first week, flag it up. We will be sending out emails which say where you can email, and what we'll do is we'll get those reissued out to you. If you didn't get a chance to update your address details, please log on to the membership system and do that. Ring up the membership contact centre, inform them that your address has changed, or email that email box, and we'll get them reissued to the correct addresses. Now, if we have non-members who are watching this and you're thinking, actually, I really want to be a part of this, you can join during the ballot period and you can vote. Also, if people don't join during the ballot period but join after the ballot is closed, and say we do get to the point where we're authorising industrial action, any members who join after the ballot would still be able to take part in any industrial action. The other thing as well to remember is that non-members are able to legally, in solidarity with their trade union colleagues, take strike action, and they are offered the same protections legally as those who are members of a trade union. So that's just that's
quite important. And that's kind of why we're going to make the strike a bit of fun. If I'm honest, is because let's ask for solidarity. Let's ask our colleagues to join us. They might not be members for whatever reason. It would be really good if we could persuade them to be a member. But equally, that solidarity message to DSTL that things have got to change, I think, would be most welcome.
Speak to your colleagues. Best thing is word of mouth. Speak to your colleagues. Say, look, you had your are you a member? This is really important. Have you had your postal ballot? Have you ticked the box? Have you returned that? I have. It's really important, because we want momentum. We want people to get behind this, because it's only by standing together that we will get that change.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. Now, last thing on my list is what to do next. So other than go and check your post, fill it in and get it back in the post, that's number one. Then keep up to date. So we've listened from the mistakes of the last ballot. We've got a website up and running. We've got a members app that's totally secure up and running. We've got a WhatsApp group that's going around, and we're sending out home emails and some stuff on distillery. Now, obviously, we can't use employer equipment to further industrial action, so that does restrict us to using stuff that's offsite. So our website and home email and the WhatsApp group. So keep up to date, keep logging in, seeing what's going on, because I think things are going to speed up really quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. Really good. So yeah, there will be, watch out on social media because there'll be lots of stuff coming out. So yeah.
Talking of social media, we are using the hashtag DSGL Pay. So if people are seeing things and they're retweeting, add in the hashtag DSGL Pay, and we'll see if we can gather a body behind it.
But yeah, I'm sure there will be lots more questions as we go along. If there are more questions, please, speak to your local reps. Drop it on any of those social media platforms, and we'll address those. There will be more guidance coming out as we go through the ballot, and what happens, and what happens afterwards. But yeah, don't be scared to get involved. This is why you join. This is why you join a union.
Exactly. This is exactly why we exist. People talk about insurance policies and all that, and that is part of why you join a union.
Yeah.
But this is a real reason. The real reason you stand together, and we've got a voice. We can make the change.
Yeah, you're not on your own. Yeah, you know, we will protect you.
That's right.